Yo, welcome to Play Free FC, real conversations with the people who shape the game of soccer. Today's guest is Phil Karn, former professional soccer player and current mid-academy director and U14 coach with the Philadelphia Union Academy. Phil played soccer at Drexel and Penn State before going on to play professionally with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, as well as spending time in the MLS system. He's from Roslyn, PA, which is just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We played against each other in high school, played together in college, and he's one of the first people who really pushed me into coaching. As good as he was as a player, he's an even better human. In this episode, we get into his journey from high school all the way through the pro game, the birth of YSC and Union Academies, which was the vision of Richie Graham, one of the most influential figures in modern American youth sports development today. The Academy simply does not exist without him. You'll organically hear his name, so it's worth mentioning from the top. We also get into the evolution of the game from the 80s and 90s, aka the cutback generation, to today. We'll talk about the high school versus academy conversation, the role of parents, and ultimately what kind of humans the game develops. I'm super stoked to share that today's show is brought to you by our friends at the Philly Soft Pretzel Factory in Langhorne, PA, just off of Route 1. And mention Play Free FC, get a free pretzel, and give them a big high five from their boy, Freddie. So, all right, episode 1, Phil Karn. Let's get into this, John. Welcome, Phil.
Hello, Freddie. It's good to be here.
Good to see you, man. I'm excited.
Very excited. So it's always good to catch up with old friends, especially yourself. You and I, we keep in touch.
We really do.
We always are thinking of each other. So when I heard you were interested in doing this thing,
and I couldn't think of someone better to kind of kick this off with. But thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to help.
So Phil, here come the hard hitting questions, man. When you think about 16-year-old you, what did the game mean?
I mean, the game was everything. I mean, all I ever thought about in the world was football. Soccer. I called football a lot, but that's all I thought about. I mean, growing up, I had a 4-year-old older brother, so I was getting into things at a much earlier age. Now, as a parent with 2 daughters that are 2.5 years apart, I see the younger one picking up things earlier than the older one did, because the older one was blazing the trail. The younger one is just like looking through the windshield, just being like, my sister's doing that, I want to do that. My brother did that. So he played baseball, soccer, everything. He was 4 years older than me, so when I was a young kid, I started the game like anyone else, the local club right around the corner, but I was playing it because he was playing it. And then I just took to liking it. I mean, I played multiple sports. I played baseball. That bored me to death. I was in the outfield and the ball never came to me. I had to become the catcher. And then soon enough, I was out of the game. But I like baseball. I can watch it. And I like softball as an adult. But as a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, I didn't. It was just too slow, too boring for me.
Yeah.
And, getting into like 14, 15, 16, I was in ice hockey big time. So, and I was into karate, and I got into all these things. Everything essentially got in the way of football and soccer. So I would play it until it kind of, I'm at hockey now 2 times a week, and I could be playing soccer. So everything that I ever did could never take over the feeling I had for soccer and what I got from the sport, and just how much I loved it as a younger kid, how much I wanted to be a pro. I think back to the 86 World Cup. That's the World Cup that I was 11. So that's the World
Argentina and Maradona.
I mean, my mom probably still has all the clippings. I remember the nets. That's what stood out to me, the big square net. The net was pulled back like 10 feet. And when you shot it in the net, the ball went so far in the goal. And I remember that feeling, and I remember making that up in my basement growing up, like trying to pull a blanket back underneath the steps. All that stuff, you score and you think you're in the World Cup. And that put me on the stage of, the game and how far I could go. And before I get into 60, when I was really young, I remember, and you think back to what the game was like, my dad dropped me off at a park for soccer once. Imagine being a parent now and this happening. I was at one field in Roslyn, grew up in Roslyn, and he dropped me off at 7 years old. And then when he came back, I wasn't there. And they had taken me from that field at 7 and brought me over to the U10 field, U11 field, and had me playing with 10-year-olds playing up. So and my dad's like, he's not here. Like, what do you mean? Like, so somebody drove me or walked me. The fields weren't too far apart from each other. My dad's like, he's not there. And then I remember that, his name was Jimmy DeFerdinand. He was my first like travel team coach. And he's like, yeah, brought me right over when I was 7 to play up and be amongst different kids and different levels. And so right from the start, you know, I was put into an environment that was challenging. And I mean, I don't really remember that story, but my dad tells me that one, and that was pretty funny. And I
Yeah,
think that now, like the day we live up now, like we're living in an age now where I look at my phone to see where my kids are all the time. You know what I mean? I couldn't
correct.
imagine if I wasn't a parent back then. We didn't have phones. We didn't have anything that we have now
It
that
was different.
makes us think the way we do. But
That's right.
you know,
And knowing your mom and dad or your dad, that sounds about it's pretty
that's
funny.
you know, 16, I was in high school. So, and
Yeah,
that's what it was. I mean, that was when you were growing up playing the game, the thing you aspired to be was excel at high school in the high school game and play on your high school team
yeah,
and do really well for the school. And that was like the pinnacle. I mean, there was a bunch of select teams and intercounty teams that in and of itself had a pretty cool structure back then. As I've been in the
sure.
game now, as I have and helped, you know, build up and develop the Union Academy, like what we had growing up
That
was
was it.
was pretty awesome in and of itself as
Yeah,
well. So and it created a pyramid system. As you do well, you move up the ranks,
that's
similar
right.
to what we're trying to do now. We're just doing it in a different way. A lot more infrastructure, a lot more
Yeah,
money invested, and
yeah.
academies are spending the money to develop the players. But
I want to get into that, but I want to ask you a quick because I think you're interested in the fact that you played high school, you played college, you played professionally. What changed for you at each level? You're talking a little bit about high school. What changed for you going from high school to college, and then what
yeah,
did college teach you about yourself that allowed you to go to the next level? And by the way, you played at Drexel, transferred from Drexel to Penn State, which I had transferred a trimester too late, or otherwise I could have been there with you. It's a whole nother story. But what did each level teach you?
I mean, high school, like you're coming of age as a high school kid. I mean, I remember my high school years were like the years I remember. Most people remember their college years and all the friends that they get there. And I do. I cherish them as well. But like high school, you were with your mates growing up, your best buddies, you know, you were younger, you were experiencing everything for the first time. All that stuff took you know, front and center. And as a football player, you were learning everything the first time as well because you were just starting to realize how good you might become. So as a soccer player in high school, you know, like the level is always defined by, you know, the bottom of the group, you know. So in high school, we had an elite group at the top. We had a really good high school team. My senior year, we made it to the district finals, lost in the quarterfinals of state, and won like 22, 23 games, scored a ton of goals, but there was 3 forwards on my team that all scored more than 20 goals a season that year.
Yeah. How many
Um,
goals did you score? 40 something?
I scored 47. Man, I can't remember now. I used to be able to remember, but it was a lot. 47 or 48 goals my senior year, and that was fun, you know, and but that I mean, that was I could do that because the other 3 guys were also so good, you know, like you couldn't in high school, you get the man mark double teaming all over the place. Say he's the best player, let's just put another guy near him. The game was different. You had the sweeper stopper system. Once one center back just stayed back behind everybody.
The diamond.
It was more man to man across the back. I remember 3-5-2s. You had 2 forwards and just 2, you know, the 2 defenders marked somebody all over the field. Then you get into like the 90s, and I was even just reading an article, Italian guy that started the zonal defensive system in the great 4-4-2. Instead of defending players, he would defend space. That was the 90 World Cup. We were 94 World Cup, like we were in high school at that time. So we
Yeah,
were
that's right.
coming through an age where the game was starting to change a little bit into more zonal
Evolve.
defending. So you were starting to move away from that. But we were as 16-year-olds in high school, we were in that system of man for man. So when you had 3 players up front that could score, you couldn't just mark one. And then when you couldn't just double team one, we were all successful. And I was obviously at a level in the game where I was excelling and moving through the ranks quickly. So I had a lot more success individually, but the individual success was as a result of the team success. So that's how it always works. You know, you never really have
For
an
sure.
individual so good and the team not good. So going through that from high school to college, everything just went up a level because college you're recruited. Every player on the team is recruited. High school, it's your town, your community comes together and play. Yeah, you select but you select based on who lives in Abington, who lives in
Right.
Neshaminy. You're not selecting based on who lives in the country. College, you get to recruit. and you were a part of that class. I mean, Brian Herr, the goalie, Jeremy Philo, like you go through some of the names that came in there. We were all the MVPs of our league. And it was kind of really exciting when Lou Meal was going around recruiting us all saying who was coming. And that was like part of it. And he's coming, that guy's coming, this guy's coming. Next thing you know it, Drexel was like an all-star team of the area when we went there. That was in and of itself a draw, So now when you get to Drexel and you get to college, you're 17, 18 playing with 21, 22-year-olds because your juniors and seniors are like 3 years older than you. But now you're playing with older players, more seasoned players that played at a higher level for a longer period of time. These guys, they set the tone, and then you immediately are a part of that. And Drexel for 2 years, I mean, we had a good time. That first freshman year, like we were just kind of learning the ropes a little bit, and then second year, we're hosting the tournament, which was like kind of unheard of. You know what I mean? We didn't come out of that tournament too well. We lost that first game, unfortunately, but the fact that we won our conference, and we were able to
very
host
very young,
very
team.
young. When that season ended, like me personally, I was always aspiring for, the highest levels I could find. I made the decision to kind of shift out of Drexel, go to Penn State. And that was, again, another good thing for me individually. I mean, Penn State was on a bigger scale in terms of what college soccer was. Drexel was the smaller school in the city. Penn State was a bigger school that played Big Ten and got out there, played the bigger programs. And that's what I was looking at. That's what you were looking at. And getting through Penn State, traveling and flying to Washington the first weekend as a junior, that was a draw for me. And level keeps getting higher and higher every age you go to. And then when you go from high school to college and then college to pros, the jumps are massive, but that jump from college to pro, that's a big one. And we're seeing that in our setup now. Like, it's hard to jump from college into the professional game, especially in America, because and everywhere. But now America is falling in line more and more and more with what Europe and everywhere around the world has done. The investment and infrastructure into the youth game, into the 14, 15, and 16-year-olds, that when you come out of college, you can still do quite well and make it. But a lot of academies now are investing a lot of money in the 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. So they want that investment, they want to see materialize. So the college player is coming out of college having it harder to find professional teams to jump onto, just because the investment in the young player is much more important than it ever has been. So that's one of the biggest changes as we sit here and talk, like from what we had at 14, 16 to what the 16-year-old has now, 25 years later.
So different.
It's massively different. But the joy, I had playing at every level I was at, and just wanting to be on the field, wanting to score goals, wanting to have success for your teammates, wanting to set your teammates up, never defending. I never wanted to defend. You know that. You guys do that part. I'll just, hang out up here, but you learn.
Yeah.
As a pro, I learned very quickly how much harder I had to
work off the ball to get back. Yeah.
Yeah. So and maybe in high school and college, I was scoring the goals. It was coming easier, but in the professional game, I remember, oh my gosh, my first year as a pro playing for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, some of the fitness sessions were just out of control. I remember one of those at Drexel too, by the way, when we lost pretty big to, who was that?
We came back from like Hartford or something, and we got to get up at 6.
And then the next day we were like running at 6 a.m. That morning is what I had a lot of when you became a pro. Like you had a lot of those running sessions. But even now, the fitness, we have performance coaches that have data chips on our backs that measure how fast we run, meters per second, how much running we're doing, what the training session is like. We've got our training sessions designed in terms of intensive days, which is short bursts of running, and extensive days, which are longer full field running events. And you design your training sessions during the week for that. And now you've got performance coaches telling you have to train. You can't run. Oh, you ran enough. You're not allowed to run anymore. I'm like, where were you when I was playing?
And you were made to feel lazy if you even remotely stopped or got sick or whatever.
Man, that's right.
Not knowing how bad it was for you to a degree.
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, I remember people pulling off and just throwing up along the fence. And then
that was a part of it. It was a part of it, right? The part of maturation and going through it. Yeah.
And now it's just completely different. But it's the science that tells you, you don't need to do that to actually be fit. There's a way, to train your body, and they've kind of taken over how we run our training sessions
Yeah.
and we prepare for
Well,
games and all kinds of stuff.
I feel like it's so interesting because of when we grew up and how soccer has changed. I guess looking back on it, for me, inevitably, I think you are where you should be. But when did coaching start to feel like the next chapter for you? I remember being there with you kind of when a lot of that happened. But just out of curiosity, when were you like, yeah, this is it for me?
Yeah, I was playing professionally. I'd been playing for 5 years. All I had ever thought about in my life was soccer, soccer, soccer. Nothing outside of that became serious, like getting married, having a family. I thought of none of that stuff. When I was playing, it was just football, and then I would come home in the off season and either try to link up with an indoor league because that's what we had back then. You would play outdoor for 7 months and then come in and play indoor for 6 months. The teams would overlap. You would miss some of your season for the other. It was a bit of a grind. That's what, to be successful in America at the level that I was at, that's what you were trying to do. I wasn't playing in Europe or any of that stuff. So I would come home and instead of doing indoor, I tried it a couple times, had some failures in terms of injuries that prevented some of that stuff from materializing, broken foot here and there. I would work as a carpenter. So I was starting to learn a trade outside of soccer, outside of my degree at Penn State. I actually didn't have my degree still because I was playing. I left early. So when I started my playing career, I had about 10 credits till I graduated. But you can only play when you're young. So I wasn't going to let that stand in my way. So after college, played professionally 1 year in Reading and then 4 years at Pittsburgh Riverhounds. And in the middle of that was drafted into the MLS and by Columbus Crew and was trying to break through into Major League Soccer. And I can explain that later. But from there, it was just soccer. So when I got to 27, 28 years old and my contract was up at Pittsburgh and I wasn't coming back there, throughout my time at Pittsburgh, like you would play as a player, but then we also had these coaching programs where we'd run camps for the community and you were getting the club's name out. You were running Pittsburgh Riverhound soccer camps. Me and another guy, Mike Apple, were pretty tight. And like we would become like directors of these camps. Like the players on the team were like the directors. So you were learning a little bit how to run a camp, what we were doing. We were coming up with this stuff ourselves, the activities, a lot of fun. It was like fun for the kids, but also let's get the name out. Let's get the players out into the community. So it was
Phil, was Mike Apple Akron kid?
He was an Akron kid.
That's right. Cause I played at Miami with his buddy Todd.
Jeez.
I put this all together right now. Okay.
No, oh my gosh. So like in all of that, when my career ended at around 28, when I was kind of done, like after Pittsburgh, I was looking at other contracts. I had a really good setup at Pittsburgh. They really took care of us in terms of insurance, pay, everything, housing. It was really good. And at that time, the USL, it was called the A-League. It's now called USL Championship, if you're following soccer, professional sports now. Some clubs were better than others. Like some clubs were set up well. Some clubs, the guys wouldn't get paid at the end of the week. So there was bad systems and I had a really good one. So when I was done there, I had to go look for another team. And when I went to some of the tryouts to land on some of the other teams, Syracuse it just wasn't the same. It's like, I'll pay you this. Right. It was half what you were making or even less than half. You didn't know if you'd get paid at the end of the week. So at that time, and I'm like, man, I probably should do something else with my life. You know what I mean? Like all I've been ever doing is soccer. And that's when I came home, got reconnected with you, played for Marion Football Club, and was like trying to figure out what's next. Because all I've ever done was soccer. And then I got reconnected with a guy named Greg Wilson, and he was the coach of Philadelphia Textile. And he's like, why don't you come on and help me and be an assistant coach? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I essentially, after a year of coaching, I've been doing this for so long, how can I not be in it? And I got back into coaching, started coaching, went back to school, was going to maybe get my teaching certification so that I could coach. Because if you wanted to be a full-time coach and make money, you had to be like a teacher, you know what I mean? So that you could be done school every day at 3:00 and either coach high school or be available at night to coach the kids. And so that whole process was happening. I was coaching at Philadelphia Textile and I was still young, so I could still play. Like I'm 29 years old and I was just done being a professional. So like I wasn't slow by any stretch. And when I'd play with the kids, I was better than them all. So immediately they're like, holy cow, who's this guy? And then you establish the respect. So like, it's a lot easier sometimes to coach and get into the game when you're 20-something years old, having played, because you can do everything.
Philadelphia Textiles, now Philadelphia University.
That's right. Well, now I think it's Jefferson University.
Oh, is it Jefferson?
It's called Jefferson.
Ooh.
Jefferson Health took
That's
over
incredible.
everything, and they've dropped down into like Division 2 or 3 or whatever.
That's right.
it
Okay.
is.
And then
At the
Greg
time-
is a Downeytown. Greg's an ex-Downeytown guy. Did he not coach at Downeytown? And now is he still at UC Santa Barbara, or is he?
He's still at UC Santa Barbara. So when I went there at Philadelphia University, it was still Division 1. I was with him for 2 years. At the end of that second year and during that first year, that's when, again, you and I got reconnected. You were like, come and play for Marion. So I came and played on the local men's team with you and Paul Perdickus, all our mates that played at Drexel together. Richie Graham.
Which is
and
where
then
this is going. Yeah.
That's where I met Richie Graham. So that would lead to where I'm at today, meeting Richie and getting reconnected with Richie because of you yourself specifically. Honestly, you were the one that told me to come out and play because I was like, I don't know, but then it was all those guys and yourself. And
talk about a team, by the way. Johnny McKay, Brandon Seaman. I mean, talk about that team we beat Penn. We beat actual.
We beat college teams. When we put together that freaking Open Cup team, we were beating college teams at the time. Because, I mean, we're all 28, 29, 30.
I think that's actually a great segue into before the Union Academy is what it is now. There was YSC.
YSC. Yes.
And for the people listening, what was YSC?
Yeah, YSC, we called it Youth Sports Center. And but when I met Richie that year, I was about 29 years old or so when he played, and we got to liking each other. And Richie, knowing now what I know about Richie was drawn towards like a soccer player. Now I've been with Richie for 20 years, and he would always come to me. Like, I met this guy, Baba. He was a parking attendant at a in a bar in a restaurant downtown. He's like, I want you to get him involved. I'm like, sure. And Baba is one of my best friends now. You know what I mean? He's been working with us since we brought him in. He's an African guy, played for Malian professionally. And he didn't even see him play. He just started talking to him. And the guy's like, yeah, I played for Mali. Next thing you know, he's around our programs. It was amazing. And that was Richie. Like, if you had talent in the game, like he was drawn to you. I mean, that's how we met everybody we met in the game. And we brought in to work around the building. But YSC started, and I remember it specifically because I remember when I was at Philadelphia University, Richie's like, I got this idea. Would you want to do it? And I'm like, okay. He's like, I want to start with my kids team. His son Tiger was a U9 and run their age group, but do it differently. I want to have it be one group of 30 kids. We'll train them together, and then on the weekends they go and play in their age groups and their levels A, B, and C. But we try to bring them together as a group. So we had all these like ideas, and we want to start having more training units than we have game units. Because at that time, you would train twice a week and you play a game on the weekend. And that was so that it would align in your club. Like the boys trained on Mondays and Wednesdays, the girls trained Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Was that over? My sense of timing's off. When we were at Chesterbrook, that was early YSC when I was early.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
That would have been when we were working with FC Europa.
Yes.
Before YSC, Philadelphia Union Academy, anything came in. It was like Richie's initial, and when that started, Richie's like, I want you to do this thing. And I was like, okay, let me tell Greg Wilson that I'm going to stay with him through the fall. This was like the spring, whatever year it was. It must have been like and I was like, I'll tell Greg now, I'll give him like 9 months, like, because it's hard to find people in this position. I was like, a few days later, whatever. Greg's like, hey, Phil, I'm done. I'm going to UC Santa Barbara. I'm like, whoa, all right. So I'm like, I called Richie the next minute. I got off the phone. I was like, I'm in. So I'm going to finish out the spring.
Yep.
And we're going to start right away.
Talk about the stars aligning, huh?
Talk about everything aligning. So I finished out Philadelphia Textile that year as like the interim head coach, which was fun. You want to still be he offered me the job. And I was like, I'm going to do this thing with this guy, Richie. So I appreciate it. So I finished out the year, which was a great experience for me because I was the head coach, taking them through the spring season, which isn't a big season in college soccer, as we all know, but it's still very important, but it's not the main part of it. So we started, that would have been that fall. And I don't know the dates exactly, but it was in and around that 2004 time. Because I played until 2000,
yeah.
And then 2004 or 5 and around there, because I got married in 2006, because that's
World Cup year.
World Cup year. You were there.
None of us in your wedding party were listening.
Giving the score, and my video still 1-1. Walking down the center aisle, and
it was like USA versus Italy.
It was USA Italy, and we tied. And Italy won the World Cup that year. That's when Don did the headbutt, and but like all during all that time. It's funny how fast the world works because of soccer. And then after the first year of not thinking about soccer, I meet I rekindle a love that I had from high school sweetheart. We get married and the rest is history. So it's like, as soon as you're done soccer for a year, you realize there's other things. And now my life couldn't have been better if that didn't happen. But the football part, YSC kind of started in its infancy, and we started at TE, Tredeffen Easttown Soccer Club. We coached one age group, U9, 3 teams. That was year 1. And then Richie was in the process of like, I'm going to make this bigger. I want to buy land. I want to build a building. I want to take this to the next level. And the premise of all of it was more training units. I remember it. Like, it was like, we don't train enough. We have to train more during the week, more training than we have games to develop the player. And that's when we started to pioneer what we were doing. Year 2, we went to a former teammate of ours, Matt Naylor, whose daughter was playing at Greater Chester Valley. So year 1, we had 3 teams, 1 age group. Year 2, we had that same age group at U10. So we had U10 boys at TE, and we had U9 girls.
Yep. Also involved with that.
Greater Chester Valley. So we had, and it was only like 2 teams, like an A and a B team. They didn't have as many kids. So that we had those 2 teams. During year 2, we started to like run programs at a place called Rocket Sports. It was an indoor facility in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. It had a field, an indoor building. A guy named Charlie Dodds ran the business, operated the business, rented like the facilities from a guy named Hank Julisher, who owned the land. And we started to run like that. Those teams we were working with would come to Rocket Sports and do like once a week training through the winter. So we'd rent space, run the programming. So we started to like, earn our stripes, blaze the trail, whatever it is. Like, this is what we're going to do. Year 3 is when it took a big jump. And then we ran programs at TE. So we had Richie Graham's other son, Max Graham, U9, 3 teams, U11, 3 teams for TE. So we had 6 teams. And then at Greater Chester Valley, we had U9 girls and U10 girls. So now we had 11 teams that we were running. And this is when like I was starting to learn how to be almost like a DOC. I was like a DOC at 2 clubs because I was like trying to find the coaches. That's how you got involved, right? Like, you were involved. You were one of the coaches. Like, I want to bring all my friends, all my former teammates, guys I played with, and I want them to be involved. And that's how we grew it. And that was year 3. That took a massive run. And then year 4 would have been right around 2008. I was hired full time in soccer that September. And then we hired Ian Monroe. And Ian Monroe was our figurehead. He was the Scottish guy with all the experience, coaching the Premier League, played in the Scottish Premier League and the English Premier League.
Did he play at Aberdeen?
Man, I wish I could remember exactly. He was involved. He played with Rangers a little bit.
He knew Richie's Dartmouth coach. Is that the connection there?
Yeah, which is Jamie Clark. Jamie Clark, is it Jamie Clark? Bobby Clark. Jamie Clark just won the championship with Washington, and that's his son, Bobby Clark.
Oh, get out.
Yeah.
I did see that. I saw that. That's insane.
Clark. That's Bobby Clark's son. And that's where, when Bobby Clark was Richie's coach at Dartmouth. And when Richie was like, I have this whole idea, I need to bring a guy in, Bobby Clark was the one that told Richie, you need to get Ian Monroe. He was our guy. And so I had the privilege of then now working with like Ian Monroe for the last, 15 years. He retired 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
But he was the director. I was his assistant. And then from that 4th year, that point, the politics of things started to come in. Like, Richie always wanted to be like a club neutral training facility and just do the training, not the teams. But in order to start everything, we ran teams or clubs.
Right.
And then he was like, I want to buy a building. I want to really take this to the next level and have, club neutral training sessions and like more training for the kids and really ramp the extra training sessions up. And that's where it was a natural break where the board at TE had some questions about like us kind of working in different environments and maybe, promoting the best players from those clubs to go to the strongest teams, the FC Delcos of the world. Like, so you ended up telling your best players to go leave. Clubs never like that, but you don't own the kid, especially when you're charging the kid $4,000 to play for your team. How can you turn around and say you're not allowed to leave?
But it's also a natural conflict, and I understand that. So is this when, right around here, the union concept starts to happen, and now it's like, okay, we're club neutral maybe for the younger YSC. How does it evolve into the union academy?
Into the union. Well, and that's also another interesting story. I mean, our podcast could be 2 hours long, but at the same time, like, that was another interesting concept in that before the Union Academy existed because we started around 2006. So Richie's like figuring out what to do next and how, like in 2006 is when we had the 4 teams. So 2007 is when we broke away and Richie had then started the process of purchasing Rocket Sports. He bought the land from the guy, Hank Julisher, who I mentioned. And then he bought the business from Charlie Dodds and retained him. And then he renovated the facility in King of Prussia and built a brand new field, a full half a field indoors. So a field that's 70 by 55 indoor. And then we started to really ramp up our training programs, player development programs, charging money for programming. And before it became Union Juniors, and before that really took effect, she was partnering with like FC Barcelona. And it's the most amazing story. Like, he's like, I want to like try to figure out a partner. And he was going to partner with Barcelona. So much so that Richie's the only guy I know of that was now meeting with the higher ups of Barcelona. Remember him telling me this story, and he'll have to tell you if it was, like you remember certain things, you hope all of it's, true. But I'm pretty positive on this one. But he goes to Barcelona to visit the executives. He decides he's going to bring back FCB Escola, which is like a camp business that Barcelona runs all around the world. So they came and did a couple camps like around 2007 and 2008. So we were like, we're going to partner with Barcelona. Richie's back and forth a couple times. Ian Monroe goes to Barcelona to watch training. Xavi, Iniesta, all these guys are the guys on the team. This is the Barcelona that made Barcelona what they were. Tiki-taka soccer. Pep Guardiola is the coach. Everybody's watching him. Messi is like 16. He's not even like, it's Ronaldinho who's the man at the time. Messi's like not even there yet, but he's there, but he's a baby.
He hasn't broke the first team yet.
Yeah, he's just starting to break it. He's like 17. He's on the team coming off the bench. She goes and visits, gets put on a team charter, flies into like southern France, I remember. Doesn't have his passport. Because like the Spanish league, like in order to get one of the northern teams in Spain, I remember him telling me like you actually flew into France or whatever it was. I can't remember the geography, but then you would then like bus back through so he had to go through, but you're with Barcelona, you're fine, even though you don't have a passport, you're some American. And the bus with Messi, Ronaldinho, they're all on the plane. He's sitting in the back. It's like unbelievable.
Only Richie,
like,
right?
Only Richie. And that's when you knew, like, this guy, he's going to do things, and he has in American soccer. I mean, anyone that knows anything about soccer now, Richie Graham's name's up there at the top in terms of pioneering everything that we're doing. So his investment in the game I have personally benefited from, and I owe everything that I do to him. Like I will stand by him in anything he ever needs. And so like around that time, then right as that was kind of materializing, and we were going to maybe have a Barcelona relationship, they announced that Philadelphia was going to have an MLS team. So when that happened, Richie's like, right into Nick Sikevich. Yep. I can be your youth policy. I'll make the investment. It was an easy yes, definitely. And then discussions happened. Yep. Then we created the Union Juniors program, which was arguably one of the best things we have ever done as a club. It was a club neutral training facility. There's programs now called SWAG doing philanthropic programs in the city. Richie's
City, Philadelphia.
Yep, yeah, that's awesome. Doing stuff for the community, but it started with Union Juniors and Richie. And we created programming through YSC Academy, which wasn't the school now. It can get confusing now because we have a school called YSC Academy, where we created the Union Juniors program, which was free of cost training once a week for like, call it, for the sake of argument, call it 12 weeks in the fall and 12 weeks in the spring. So 24 to 30 sessions a year. They would come in once a week. You had selection processes, tryouts. To make a long story short, those tryouts grew into the relationships you had with the coaches. The coaches would then say, hey, we got a player here you got to look at. Then we had more controlled tryouts where it's like coaches would recommend players from their team. And then those players would come to the tryout. Then there'd be 80 kids of scouted players. And then from that 80, we might pick 40 or 50, or every age group determined how many kids we would have. Like it was no limit. And then we started to ramp it up. Union Juniors in the fall and spring, and then our PDP program, which was the pay-for-play program, we would do in the winter. And we created a really cool year-long training program. The kids that were getting free training in the Union Juniors program would pay additionally to come through the winter and do 2 8-week programs, and then in the spring come back to juniors. So some of these kids were training with us 40 times a year. They would do 12, and then 8 and 8, whatever that number equals to. Up to 30 to 40 times a year, they'd come in once a week. But all these kids would go back to their teams and play games. We never had teams. And then as the union started to grow and U.S. soccer started to grow and the development academy started to grow and the academy system started to grow, when the academy system started changing from, and getting into the world of like high school soccer, like
Yep.
they were like, we're now going to play games in the fall. And that whole debate came of high school soccer, academy system. It was the infancy.
What's your just pause on that. What's your high school, what it meant to you, what it meant to me? What are your thoughts on that? I maybe tread lightly because of your situation, but I am curious to know what would Phil, going back to freshman Phil Karn, what would you do today in 2026?
What would I do today is I would go to the union. If you're growing up now and looking at the game, we have teams now that play in our cities. I mean, you're in New York, you have the New York Red Bull. They have an academy.
Sure.
Like if you're an 8-year-old, there's a Red Bull academy. There's a New York City academy. And that academy is, some academies more than others are linked straight up through the club to the first. Kids will get chances. If I went back in time, it's a hard question to answer, because when we were growing up, the windshield, looking through that windshield analogy I use, was high school soccer. That was it. Like you were intercounty, the state select program. These are the things I remember wanting so badly. And they were select teams, intercounty, state. You made the regional team. From the regional team, you made the national team, high school, college. Now it's just different. That's what's different now. So like high school still has its place, and Abington actually won a state championship.
They won a state championship this year.
Yeah, and it was the first state championship I think we've ever won. Randy Garber, who was my youth coach.
Well, that's actually, I love that. Every player has a coach, right? Someone that's like shaped them. And for you, it was Randy.
It was Randy. And that all bleeds into what you asked me. It's segue here into high school soccer. What would I do? Not taking anything away from high school soccer. That's what I would aspire to be on that team. But the high school soccer environment was so valuable to me as a player. And going back and watching Abington have the run they had, they played Springfield in the semifinal. Springfield and Montgomery County in Pennsylvania. So those listeners in PA, there's 2 Springfields. My daughters go to Springfield, Montgomery County. I live in Springfield, Montgomery County, and they played Springfield, Montgomery County in the semifinal game. I went to that game. There was 3,000 people at the game. The stands were packed. It was like a football game for Springfield there. The environment was amazing. The football was like 100 miles an hour up and down the field, but it was so highly competitive. Guys were putting their bodies on the line. And like you go through ages of your career where you're like, they don't play football, they don't do this, they don't do that. But then you realize that, they're out there to win. That is football. Some teams play that way. And even we have a style at the Union that's very forward first, transition driven. There's so many different ways to play. At the end of the day, at the highest levels, the job is to win.
Yeah.
That's it. Doesn't matter how you do it. That's what you got to do. And
for the listener, so Randy Garber, it kind of takes us back to the beginning of the story. Randy Garber actually lived on that field that
he did.
You were probably dropped off at.
He was.
And he was the assistant when you were a senior? Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a senior, he became the assistant. He was a former player, played against Paley in the MPSL.
He played with the Rowdies, right?
Played with the Rowdies, had
and
a
then
professional
All-American at Penn State, which is the Penn State connection for you to a degree.
Penn State connection.
Yep.
And then he moved back to Roslyn, and he lived in the town. He grew up in Roslyn, and then he lived in the town. He lived right next to the field. So when I was doing state selects and stuff like that, he was the coach, and then he became the assistant at Abington my senior year, the year we were very good, and helped the head coach who was like on his way out, Ken Cooper. His impact on my life as a player and as a coach is, who I am today because of him. And he would work with me at that field. I would drive down to the park and yell his name, "Hey, Randy, you want to come out?" And he'd come out. It was easy, done a day's work, and he'd come out and cross balls to me or play balls into me so I could shoot and finish and work on my game. And he was always there to help me. And whenever I needed it, and then when I went to college, leaning on him for advice, and then drafted and professional and all of that stuff. So.
And I think that's, you and I have another unique connection there, because Randy's roommate in college, or at least teammate, was Rich Reese. Rich Reese was my assistant coach at the Chamonix. And when I was possibly transferring to Penn State, I went with Rich Reese and Walt Barr to meet Barry Gorman at the Philadelphia Coaches Convention. And that's where the whole thing, it's another story where, because of the trimesters at Drexel, I wouldn't be eligible to play Big Ten. I would have had to sit out another year. And for the listeners, I had redshirted my freshman year because I had torn my ACL. So it just really wasn't in the cards for me.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Getting back into all that stuff, Randy. in the high school soccer, like high school soccer is an amazing opportunity for kids. There's different levels of the game right now. The MLS academies obviously are really pioneering and pushing. There's a lot of investment infrastructure. We just built $100 million facility in Chester.
It's unbelievable.
To help the Union Academy aspire and be the best academy, which we've been the last 3 or 4 years running. I talk to a lot of different people in the game. They're always aspiring to do the things that we're doing. We've had homegrown players have success on our national team.
As many, if not more than any academy.
Now, yeah, there was other teams in the past, and now it's been Philadelphia Union, and we've got the U.S. national team just hosted a camp at Philadelphia a month ago. We had 4 players from our academy in that camp.
It's insane.
Brenden Aaronson, Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, and Matt Freese. So they were all in our academy growing up, some coming in at different ages. Matt Freese came in a little later. He was a little late developer, but he came in towards the end of his high school career, but and then was a homegrown signing, went to Harvard, homegrown signed for the first team, and now the main goalie for the U.S. and plays for New York City. Brenden Aaronson plays for Leeds in the Premier League. Mark McKenzie plays for Toulouse in France, and Austin Trusty plays for Celtic in the Scottish Premier League. So all these guys, they were 12 years old when I started working with them.
I mean, think about just even the Brandan Craigs, the Quinn Sullivans, the Jack McGlynns, all these players. It's just insane. Came right through.
It's amazing. And
Cavan Sullivan. Yeah, it's
Cavan
wild.
Sullivan, and he had an assist last night for our first team. So many players now have come through the system that, came to life because of Richie Graham's vision way back in the day. And then people like myself, Ian, were fortunate enough to be given an opportunity to work, to be paid a salary, to play, to run our childhood dreams and go. All I wanted to do was play soccer player. Now I'm a developer of the game. I'm in the business of youth development.
What's your specific role? What's the title that you
this year now? I'm like the Mid Academy director for the Philadelphia Union. So I run U14 and under. I oversee it. My main age groups are U13, U14, and then what U12 kind of brings into that. We brought back our Union Junior program this year. So our U9, U10, U11 age groups is Union Juniors, which we have a new academy director, John Shearer, who's is excellent. Another guy that was a part of everything we did. He's a guy that I brought in to be a coach with Union Juniors years ago. Now, once we brought John in, he became like the academy scout. Then he became the first team scout. And then recently he's become the academy director. He understands everything that happened way back in the beginning, and he's bringing some of that stuff back. Obviously I couldn't agree more. I'm so proud of the fact that he's done that. And I've stayed in these younger age groups all my life. I found it to be very rewarding to kind of help the kids go from the 99 to the youth to the 11-11 age group. The ages I've really been drawn to it and have stuck it out, and have been very rewarding from it. I've gained a lot, so much. A lot of coaches are in the game younger and they want to aspire to work with the older teams. I've been the guy that just wants to be the best at what I'm doing, and everything else will take care of itself.
I love that.
But I'm just genuinely happy and to be in these ages to help these kids go from, maybe 11, U13, U14 straight up through and help be a part of the bridge that gets them from youth soccer to senior soccer. And in my first couple of years when we were developing the academy and Union Juniors, we had U16s and U14 age groups. That's when players like Christian Pulisic was basically a part of the program.
Coming in early, yeah.
Like he still played for PA Classics, but we had our connections with him, and he was part of some Philadelphia Union youth things. But PA Classics still was the environment that really helped produce him, and his dad and what they did there. He had Zack Steffen, who he was a part of that program when we were not a full-time team. We were just like pulling guys in from the Delcos, PA Classics, the PDAs, the local teams, and we took Union Juniors model, and we did it in the very infancy before we had teams with U16, U18. And there's a lot to go into, but we can spare some of it. But eventually that led into the academy having teams at the older age groups. So there's been so many iterations of it, but of what we do at the academy. But just like anything else, you're always trying to improve and innovate. And we have a really good youth system now in this country, much, much different now than it was when we started. And again, we started, the whole idea was to get more training units, get kids on the field training more so that they're better in the game, because too many times you train once a week and then you play a tournament. So there was no time to work on what you were doing. And that was one of the main pillars of what we developed way back when. Now, every team is training 3 times a week. Every club.
Yep.
Training 3 times.
Almost regardless of level.
Regardless
EDP,
of level, everybody
right.
is training more. And that was a win. Conestoga is a high school that's right in the middle of YSC sports where we started. And Conestoga's high school team has won state championship after state championship
Countless.
for years. And like part of me in the back of my mind, and those kids were all in the PDP programs. Because again, TE was Conestoga. Conestoga was our building. Like if you were paying and doing extra programs, you were coming to that.
I mean, you guys hit the jackpot in terms of you're geographically blessed in terms of being near New Jersey, being in that Southeast Pennsylvania, Philadelphia corridor, Delaware. I just find it fascinating. But what I do think, going back to like the academy system now versus how you and I grew up, I do think that there's a place for everyone. You mentioned the high school soccer state semifinal or final. As you know, my high school team, where I'm a volunteer assistant, won the New Jersey State Championship this year. Most of those kids play EDP. They don't even play ECNL.
Yeah.
But there's a place for them. Now, most of them can play ECNL. A few of them can play MLS Next or do, but they chose not to. They chose to stay local with their team and look at the success they're having at Ramapo High School, which is the high school that I helped coach at, and having fun and playing in their backyard. You talked about your family and the love of your family, and let's talk about the parents really quick, because I think this ecosystem affects families deeply. And I think the big question that like listeners are going to want to hear, a lot of families struggle with the decision to leave there. Going back to what I said, there's a place for everybody to go to a higher level, albeit an academy, to get more exposure, more competition. Based on what you've seen, how should families think about that decision?
Getting back to what you just said, there's a different level and a different trajectory for every kid. Some kids right away, you immediately know they're like excelling and they're better than everyone and everybody wants them. And then there's the other kids that are doing really good, just don't get noticed as much, but have an upward trajectory in terms of their development. And sometimes it's staying at the local team for a longer period of time. I think you just got to look at it, every single kid differently, and be like, at what point do you want more? Does your team offer what you want? I wanted to train all the time. You know what I mean? So like I couldn't get that from my team. So I played for 4 teams. Ukrainian Nationals and Sunshine Foundation, all these teams that went to different tournaments. You don't really do that much anymore now because your team offers more. But then if you're an individual and you're training 3 times a week, but you want to go 5 or you want to be involved in more stuff, you want more exposure, are you ready for that next level? Does the next level want you as much as you want it? And then just being patient with that decision. The younger ones traveling far at 9 and 10 and 11, it doesn't make sense. If you can play in your local team and then maybe get older age group training within your club to get that desire that you want more and to help push those players. Can't be for everyone, but certain ones. And then I think the time, it should be a natural progression. The time when it's like, okay, I'm ready for this. Like maybe my club isn't, it's here and I want to be here.
I would also think that it's, if you're being asked or sought after more than you were a year ago, that's a time it's, now I should explore it, versus maybe it's the parent who wants their kid to play at the junior, some Red Bulls or whatever it might be, but the kid's not ready for it. So
a lot of times it's the parent wanting it a little bit more. You get the email, hey, my kid's doing this, but they're doing what?
They're advocating for their kid.
They're advocating. They're doing whatever they can for their kid, and I got a lot of time for that. I've had an interesting trajectory in how I think about parents. In the beginning, I'm like, parents, stay out of the way. You're the problem.
Right.
More, I'm in it now. You're a big part of this, parents. And I remember in the beginning, we had the triangle of influence. We had the player, the family, and the coach. We all had to be aligned. But the parent couldn't be the most important voice there. They just had to support the decision, but you have to trust the coach to do his job in developing. That's why you have him here. If you don't trust him, then take him out. Go somewhere else. But if you're always a voice in always something in the car ride home, making the kid not happy that they were at training, like you're such a critical part in this. You got to love the kid. You got to love what they're doing. Make sure they're having fun. They can't always hear you as a negative voice. Like every time you get in the car, you just push, 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 push. Some parents do it. Some people get a lot out of it. And every kid's different. But I also could name names of kids that had, and now they're out of the game and they're
too much.
You know what I mean? So like they're young.
Burnout.
So they're 19 and they're out of the game, and they were top players at 13 years old. Top players. And now they're not playing at all.
Protecting the love of the game through that process is probably
the parents are a big part of it. Just be there for them. They're always the first voice on the sideline screaming and hollering. I always use the funny analogy, like, parents, think of yourself this way. would you go to school where your kid's in 6th grade and they're doing math, and imagine like the classroom was glass and you were looking in and you were like, yo, it's 5 plus 5, that's 10, and start screaming like it's 10, like
Right.
acting crazy at
I
your
love
kid
that.
in the classroom. That's
Looking
what
over.
you're doing when you're on the
Right.
sidelines and you're screaming stuff out. They're in the game. All they're hearing is a voice. They're not hearing what you're saying, and it's distracting. And the more I've learned, I coach U14. Like I get down on the kids, I push them, I build them up. But I sit there sometimes on the sideline saying, I don't think he has any idea what I just said to him. You just said something he doesn't know. I'm screaming across the field. I'm only yelling because he's 75 yards away from me. I'm not yelling at him. I'm just yelling so he can hear me. And they're like thumbs up, and I'm like, he heard nothing that I just said. So it's like it's the training sessions during the days, during the weeks. It's the video sessions at night. It's the individual clips that we go over. That's when the learning happens. The game starts, and it's like you hope that you prepared them enough to make good decisions. But at the same time, they're 12, 13, 14, 15. They're making mistakes all the time. And it's what they gain and what they learn from them, and teaching them to be brave, to make decisions without fear of getting yelled at.
Yeah.
We're big on that. Like, that's why we play forward all the time. It's take the forward pass, play the ball into the guy that's difficult. And if you made a bad one, let's review it later and talk about why maybe you shouldn't have done this and that action. But let's be aggressive and be brave in our games, because at the end of the day, when you're 18, 20 years old, if you train that way all your life, if a coach comes in and says, we want to keep the ball and go backwards and go, you're going to have no problem doing it.
Yeah. You just said how I sort of the genesis of play free for me. I was told somewhere along the line, I wish I could remember who the coach was, but the field is a blank canvas every time you step out there, and you need to have the freedom of expression to kind of paint the field as you see fit, paint your picture. And it's not up to other people to make you feel scared or to make you feel afraid. And that's how I think about development. Like when you get the ball, you want to have that sort of funness of like, all right, I could do this, I can do that, and you're not careless. You don't want to create like some chaotic thing, but like, all right, that's a clever idea. Maybe it didn't work, but like I appreciate and respect what you tried to do there. So I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. And as a parent, you're always trying to pull that out of your kid. The coaches are coaching them. They're talking to them. They're on them. Like as a parent, you got to pick your times of how to instruct. Because even with the parents, when I have meetings, I'm like, yeah, do you do video with them? I'm like, great, show them video. But then I'm always like, did you play? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, now you got to be careful. If you have no idea what you're talking about, don't just like, go over with it as a parent, but it can't be as a dad who's now just watching the game. All of a sudden, you're an expert in the sport. Or you know what I mean? So like,
you're a coach,
you are instructing, and what you say matters, and your kids listen to you, even though we don't think they do listen to us. And they're learning how to live and become adults, so you're a big, big, big part of it. So doing nothing isn't good either. But that right blend to make sure you're helping them and you're supporting the kids. As parents, you're helping and you're supporting, but you're enabling them to take chances, take risks, and be brave and make decisions that sometimes are going to be bad decisions that aren't going to be great results, but they are learning in the end.
And that's spoken from not only a player and coach of your level, but also a parent of two girls who play. Or have played, so that's something to keep in mind. All right, we're getting to the end real quick. Here's one where I'm really curious, because I should do a better job of prefacing these things and just ask them. I'm learning. When players leave you and your program, and not as athletes, but more as people, what do you hope they carry forward?
I mean, like your cliches everyone talks about, through this development process, you're not only training soccer players, you're developing young men. I mean, we're an all guys program. We don't have girls teams. So you're developing young men. So everything they learn on and off the field, and how to carry themselves, how to be respectful adults, and, all of it is part of it. So you hope from my standpoint, success isn't just the guys now that are playing for the Premier League and all around the world. It's every level, whether you get into college, Division I, that's a success story. I mean, we've got, kids that I think could be, senators and stuff like that have come through our school and our program, you know what I mean? And really intricate, interesting people that have come along the way. So the sport is teaching them how to be a part of a team, how to think about more than just themselves to get a goal. Like sport teaches that. And as a coach in it, you're reminding them of that every day, not so verbally like I just said it, but understanding your role as an individual, how important that is within the team. You can't just go off on your own. Individual sports are a completely different animal, but team sports, that's what you're learning, how the group effectively works together to get a common goal. I mean, that's life.
That's life.
When you get out into the work field, if you're a boss, then you have to manage your staff, that they want to work for you. They want to get the goal. If you're not a boss, then you're understanding, I'm an individual working within this group, but like I work for this company and these people, and this is what they want. Like, that's what I got to want. Like, as an academy coach, I'm not the director. I do what our sporting director wants, and I accept it and believe in the methods that we use, but I do what he wants. When I'm in charge, then people can do what I want. But that's how life works. So when you're a player, make sure your skill sets are conforming to what the team wants, not what you want. And then in like learning that whole process, even though you, the individual, might make it, but you can't be on an island doing your own thing. So
that's great.
And youth sport teaches all that all the way up through college. And then you get out of college and then you're faced with real life decisions. And the college decisions were real life as well. But now it's like, shoot,
how do I
gotta earn a living? I gotta pay for all the stuff that my parents paid for the last 22 years. Now I've got to do it. We have a real interesting thing. We have our head of school is Dr. Nuha Ahmed Lee, and
I've met her.
Yeah, she did a lot of studies on the brain. That was her main thing, and the adolescent brain, and I've learned a lot from her that I take into my kids in terms of certain ages. These kids are like 14 to 16, like 14 to 18 is the adolescent brain. Most of the decision making happens in the emotional part of the brain. The frontal lobe, which is like reasoning, doesn't develop until 18 to 20, like until you're older. And that's when you can process stuff better, make calculated decisions. When you're 14, you're just making them out of emotion. But that's how the brain develops. Like, you can't fix that. And a lot of parents don't know that. So when they're screaming and hollering at the 15-year-old, wondering, why did you make that decision? And they're just like, I don't know. Because it's like, their brain can't reason what they're saying. They can't defend their opinion as well. And some kids are more articulate than others. I mean, that always happens, but that's how the brain develops. So learning and understanding that's what we deal with every day. So when we coach, we understand what's going through the mind of that kid. We've learned that through people like Nuha, who's taught us. This is what you're looking at. So when I've done that with my kids, like my kids are getting in, and I turn to my wife and I'm just like, it's just her adolescent brain. Like, she can't.
It's not developed yet. She
is acting exactly as her brain has developed. That's what you get. So like as an adult, when you're getting mad at their decisions, it's like, what are we doing?
Well, listen, these kids, the union, your teams, the players, they're beyond fortunate to have had someone like you in your life. Because I know I feel that way about you. You help kids grow. You've helped your friends grow. You build people, and just keep on building, buddy. And I'm super proud of you. And I thank you for all the mentorship. And, when I reach out to you about an idea in terms of a player, you're always there. You always respond. You send me some things. And so I
always will be.
Just thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I wish nothing but success for this program. I know it will be, because I know you. So, and all those listeners out there, keep listening, because there'll be a lot of good people coming here and giving their ideas to help us all just be better in the game. So best of luck to everybody.
Thank you, brother.